Yeah. Living with diabetes, the challenges are real, but understanding your body, how you truly feel, that's where we start with Leon Rock's Guiding Hand on the African American Diabetes Podcast. Understand, we're talking blood sugar and healthy eating too, sharing stories and finding strength, me and you, from lifestyle changes to medical advice. We're building a community that's more than just nice. African American Diabetes is more than just a name. It's a journey to wellness, breaking free from the plane. Leon Rock's here to empower with knowledge and with grace, to live your best life at your own pace. We're tackling the myths and breaking down the fears, answering your questions, wiping away the tears, with expert guests and real-life insights shared. We're building the foundation where we're all prepared. It's about taking charge of your health and your life.
Hi, this is Leon Rock, and I am host of this podcast, African American Diabetes Podcast. And today is a beautiful day in the neighborhood. Yes, I'm talking about a beautiful day in the neighborhood as we welcome the one and the only Barbara King. Barbara King, as you may know, is the co-founder of the African American Diabetes Association. And as the co-founder, I know that diabetes is particularly important to her and her journey. So let's get it going. Let's get it started by talking with Barbara King. And Barbara King, welcome.
Thank you, Leon Rock. I
Well, I'm
appreciate
glad that you're here. I am so glad that you're here. But before
it.
we talk about the African American Diabetes Association, let's talk about you and how you got started, with a little bit of your own personal connection with diabetes. You got a conversation and a story to tell, and we want to hear. What's your
Yes,
walk? What's your journey like?
I will try to make this quick as possible because I know podcasts, we don't want to go too long. But I am Barbara King. I am a type 1 diabetic. I am one of the co-founders of the African American Diabetes Association. And I am I am a 20-year breast cancer survivor.
Oh,
And on October 5th, I I will be my diagnosis for having my pancreas removed. It will be almost 21 years. And so I've been through a lot and dealing with type 1 diabetes just because of me having my pancreas removed. It made me a type 1 diabetic. And I had something called insidious blastosis disease, and that's just the simple terms, hyperinsulinic, um, and it causes hypoglycemic when your sugar drops low. And so I had tumors on my pancreas and it was just full of insulin, and it was a hyper. And so they removed my pancreas. In one surgery, they did a partial. They did 80%, they left 20%, and then come to find out that them moving that, it did not help. And so I just had they went in, did the surgery, and I had the other 20% removed. And during that time, I was fighting breast cancer at the same time.
mm.
Uh, so that was a tug of war with me. But once I got my breast cancer and all that under control, now I had to focus on the diabetes. And so because I needed to heal just from that, from the chemo, the radiation, the diabetes became a secondary. But I still had a lot of lows. But that just brings the history of me becoming a type 1, how I became a diabetic.
Well, thank you very much. And even through this struggle, even through this pain, by the way, it was painful for me to even hear what you just said about diabetes and its complications from having a pancreas removed and all the other complications. But there's something that I'm looking at right now. And as you were explaining it, there was still a certain level of joy. Where do you get all this joy from, even with all these complications?
My joy comes from the work that I do
Hmm.
to inform. My joy also comes, it just I just have faith. I
Hmm.
truly just have so much faith that, my mother always had this saying, just have enough faith like a mustard seed. And so it never connected with me. But now, as
Mm,
I've gotten older, I just say, Barbara, you just got to have a little bit of faith that it's going to be all right.
that's
And
right.
so the diabetes challenge has, sometimes I say diabetes, it shouldn't be that not hard to fight as cancer because I see that as more devastating because it was stage 3. But
Mm-hmm.
I also say I, s- I feel to this day that diabetes is more of a fight for me than that breast cancer
Wow.
because I was determined, you
Hmm.
know, they beat breast, excuse my language, beat breast cancer's ass. And I was determined I was going to beat it,
Very.
because I was young when I got it. And
Yes.
so at that time, it was like, no, you didn't need to get a mammogram until you're in your 40s, 45, or whatever. But I
Mm,
was in my 30s. But the diabetes fight is just so much harder.
mm,
And just to this day, I find it just so much hard for me to fight and just the mental. Yes, breast cancer had its mental effect, but
hmm.
because I think I was just, I don't know why I was in that mode. But now when I look at that, I'm just like, this fight is everlasting. The
It,
cancer fight,
mm.
yes, I worry about reoccurrence and all that stuff, but the diabetes fight, I just know that that's going to be everlasting for me.
Yes.
And
And
so I find that hard.
talk about everlasting. Your personal experience, your walk has ultimately led to you becoming co-founder of the African American Diabetes Association. What was that pivotal moment or that realization that you wanted to co-found with a bunch of other co-founding board members this a national organization? What caused you to want to co-found this organization?
I found it a must just because of the disparities of a person of color that I witnessed personally. I had to literally fight for an insulin pump.
Mm,
Now, automatically, when you're a type 1 diabetic, that's a qualification in itself for an insulin pump.
hmm.
But I feel, and I felt it, that because of the color of my skin, I had to fight more. I always bring it back to the story where there was a Caucasian woman that had a child or adult child of a that was a diabetic, and she said, "You're a type 1," and I said, "Yes." She said, "Well, why you don't have a pump on?" And I said, they never offered it. They never told me about an insulin pump. And then when I asked them, it took me almost 7 months to get an insulin pump. And so when I had conversations with other co-founders that have had sort of battles with and not being able to get information that we should have been able to get. As we know, statistics show
Mhm.
African American or people of color are at the highest risk of having diabetes.
Mhm.
So why is that not discussed? So for me, having this or having being a part of the African American diabetes and being a co-founder was one of the most important things because of the challenges that I faced trying to get help and trying to look online to say, how do you live without a pancreas? What do you need to do without a pancreas?
Mhm.
And I couldn't find it. I couldn't find the information. Yes, I came from a household where my mother was from Yazoo, Mississippi, and she cooked like she was from Mississippi. So
Mhm.
all the unhealthy foods and
Mhm.
everything, but I was never taught anything other than that. And she didn't know. So she fed me what she knew was going to help us to survive. But actually, in actuality, in some ways it hurts us because a lot of us still we do that same behavior,
Mm. Yeah.
And so,
Well, talk about this same behavior situation because I'm interested in that. I'm sure the listeners are as well. Let's talk about the support systems and the resources that were critical for you to manage your diabetes journey. What were they like? What support systems did you have, and what helped you? What were the resources beyond the pump? And by the way, that was a critical resource. But what other resources were crucial to you managing your diabetes and managing your journey with diabetes?
for me, I could say that I wanted to manage it more because I wanted to see my children to
Mm-hmm.
grow up into adulthood.
Mm,
So I needed to manage my diabetes so I could be able to enjoy life. Was
mm-hmm.
it easy? Absolutely not. It wasn't easy at all. But I knew I needed to manage it. I needed to do what I needed to do. I always share, and I'll tell people in a minute, yes, I love me some sweets. And you know what I always did? I always used, well, I got low blood sugars. My
Mm-hmm.
sugars are always dropping. So I needed to eat candy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, so things like that just made me, I started thinking and I said, we have to do differently. I
Mm-hmm.
have to do differently.
Mm-hmm.
I have to because I know I wanted to survive. I know I wanted to live. And I know that there's just certain things and just being a part of the African American diabetes led me to be able to say, I didn't have a voice in the
Mm-hmm.
beginning.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't confront doctors. Now, trust and believe, I will confront a doctor head on
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to my health. But
Right.
I also know that there's individuals out there that are not able. I think of the elderly, the people that are not able to be able to speak up and to be able to say, help me.
Right.
Teach me how to monitor my sugars.
Mm-hmm.
Teach me certain things. And
Right.
that with the African American diabetes, yes, we get calls where we could say, because you know why we could say it? Because we live it every single day.
Mm.
And know, we live it as diabetics, whereas type 1, type 2, pretty much everyone that is on our board has someone that on the African American Diabetes Board has someone, a family member that's affected. Their child is affected. Their
Mm.
wives are affected. Their family members are affected. And your greatest support sometimes is your family. But your family has to know. They need to know how to deal with this horrible disease. Our family have to know because if they don't know, how can they help you? And we can't expect help if they don't know how to help us. My family didn't know nothing about diabetes. I never even knew about diabetes. I'm sure my mother had type 2, but
Mm-hmm.
she called it sugar, right?
Right.
And
Right.
so, but she never, it wasn't like something that was discussed in our household.
Mm-hmm.
And now so important that we, as African American people of color, that we discuss this in our household, and especially with type 2, because it can be prevented. We could prevent the long side effects that comes along with it.
Wow. You've said a lot. And by the way, you're going to say much more. We're going to take a break. And after we come from the break, we're going to talk about what the co-founder of the African American Diabetes Association says about one important topic, and that is what is it that she would give in terms of advice to someone that has recently been diagnosed with diabetes? We'll be back in just a moment. We are back talking with the one and the only Barbara King, a co-founder of the African American Diabetes Association, and she is giving us unbelievable knowledge about her walk with diabetes and the establishment of the African American Diabetes Association. And before we went on this break, we said that we were going to talk about something critical. And that thing that is critical, and by the way, Barbara, please give us your guidance on this, is what type of advice do you give to someone who has recently been diagnosed with diabetes? And that is drawing on your own experiences with diabetes. What type of advice do you give?
My advice and what I took for myself and what I would like to share and say is keep the faith. Fight. Fight until you cannot fight anymore. It's so important that we don't give up. That's the main thing. You can't give up. Whether you're type 1 or type 2. I always say I look as type 2 as if your doctor says to you today, you're a type 2 diabetic or you're becoming a type 2 diabetic. I look at it and I say, consider that a blessing
Mm-hmm.
because it's a warning.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a warning and it's a wake-up call to say, you know what? We got to make some changes in our life. Yes, change is hard.
Mm-hmm.
Trust and believe. I know because I love my gummy worms.
Mm-hmm.
And I use the diabetes, the low blood sugars, as an excuse to eat the gummy worms.
Uh-huh.
I had to try to change that. But
Mm-hmm.
I did not give up because I said, I'm going to find something else that will replace that sugar.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it might have been that I just was craving sugar, but I needed something else to replace that wouldn't cause my sugar to spike so high.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes we just have to do things differently. As I said, change is hard. But if you've been warned and you know that you got type 2 diabetes and you might be able to change that
Mm-hmm.
due to your change in your eating habits, something that, yes, we can control, but it's difficult. I know. I'll speak up. I
Yeah.
love, I loved it, pork. I
Mm-hmm.
loved it, all this other food. I love candy. I
Mm-hmm.
loved it all. I used that eating all that candy and certain things that I knew wasn't healthy. I used my hypoglycemic as an excuse to be able to say, I got to keep gummy worms in that drawer at night. And then my sugar don't even be low sometimes at night.
Mm-hmm.
But I just the fear of
Mm-hmm.
me waking up with a low blood sugar. But
Mm-hmm.
I had to find other ways and other things that wouldn't cause my blood sugar to go up so high.
Right.
And then give myself all this insulin and then it bounces back down to low. So I was messing with my own body. I
Mm-hmm.
was affecting myself and didn't even realize it. You know why I didn't realize it? Because no one ever told me. and I figured it out on my own. And
Hmm.
just the information that gathering from the African American diabetes and making sure the information is out there. So not only do we learn from it, it's not, I always said we have conversations, and I said, who are we to give advice if we haven't suffered through it, right?
Hmm.
I've suffered through it
Right, right.
and trust and believe I can give some knowledge on dealing with diabetes. And when you change your life,
Hmm.
trust and believe, when you change and you don't give up and you fight, you're going to see a big difference. You're going to see my hemoglobin A1C was 12 something. And
Hmm.
it wasn't my weight because I was slim.
Right,
Had nothing to do with my weight. It has something to do with those gummy worms.
right, right.
And so, we just got to change. We got to change our eating habits. We really
Eating
do.
eating habits, one. How about the endocrinologist? Should
Uh,
people have an endocrinologist?
It's a must. And I will say this, not only an endocrinologist, you should have a nutritionist
Hmm.
because not everything, everyone is different. And not only an endocrinologist and a nutritionist, but sometimes we need a mental health therapist. We need someone to help us to deal with this terrible disease. We need someone to talk to because when your family, a lot of times we're ashamed.
Right,
I've been
right.
ashamed.
Hmm.
And I know how it feels. So sometimes we need a team of people. But the best knowledge is making sure that your family knows what to do when you get a low blood sugar, when
Right.
you are getting a high blood sugar, to
Mhm.
know what the mood effects is so it doesn't affect your family as a whole. It's so important. So you need a nutritionist. You need a endocrinologist. You might even need a therapist
Hmm.
because having diabetes is a lot mentally.
Hmm.
It takes its toll on your body, your mind. It takes its toll. It takes its toll.
So you talk about hope. You talk about encouragement, self-encouragement, as well as family encouragement. You talk about the importance of knowing about diabetes, your family, your friends, and most importantly, yourself. Talk about self-advocacy for a moment. Uh, how do people become their own self-advocates? Your thoughts.
My thoughts on that, when I say that you want to live,
Hmm.
I wanted to live. I have two beautiful daughters, and I wanted to live. I wanted to see them become adults.
Hmm.
And being a diabetic for 20 years, all I could do is hope. And when I look back, I said, thank you, God. And we have to, it's hard being your own advocate when you don't speak up, when we can't relate, or the doctors don't understand us. They just say, stop eating this.
Hmm.
That just don't happen. But we got to be able to be our own self advocate. And when we don't have that, that's what the African American diabetes is here for. Because we will advocate for you. I will fight for you. I will call your doctors with consent. I will let them know because I know what the health care that you should be giving and getting. The color of your skin should not make a difference because we are at the highest risk of having diabetes, people of color, and we got to be able to admit it and to be able to say, yes, some of it's our fault, but you know what? Some of it's unknown, and we don't know. We don't know. And
Right.
if you don't know, we got to try to be our advocate or have an advocate, someone that could let it be known or for us to get the support that we need. Don't do this alone. You're not alone. Yes, you don't got to do this alone. When you got an organization that as I said, the majority has diabetics on it. We know. We know what you're going through. We know what families are going through because many of us has wives, husbands, children that have suffered. So we know we ain't just no organization. African American Diabetes is just not some organization that is there to say, okay, well, statistics shows. No, we are the statistics. We are our own statistics because we know we deal with it on a daily basis.
Wow. You've heard it straight from Barbara King, co-founder of the African American Diabetes Association. I do have a couple of other questions I wanted to ask you, and that is, what is it that individuals can do within the African American community to get involved?
We are always, the African American Diabetes Association is always open to all. We focus on the people of color because we know that's who is being affected. But we want all to be able to, you could come out and volunteer. We have different events that goes on. We would love to have people to come out, diabetics or non-diabetics, families of diabetics. It's important and we need this. This is so needed. We got websites, we got this a beautiful podcast going on. So listen to the podcast, like it if want, send comments if you need support. You got family members that are suffering from diabetes. Give them this information. You know what you can give them as a gift? Give them information to the African American Diabetes Association. That's the gift you can give your family member. You got a family member that got type 1, type 2, whatever diabetes, gestational, give them the website. Give them, put it on their phone for them. Go on their phone and put the African American diabetes so they can get the knowledge and the information. And also, the most important is for them to know they are not alone. They are not alone. They have the AADA behind them.
Very good. Wow. How powerful is that? Now, tell us how to get in touch via the website. What is the website address again?
www.africanamericandiabetes.org.
Very good. You heard it. Let me
And,
say it again. And no, actually, why
and,
should I say it again? You say it again, Barbara.
and www.africanamericandiabetes.org. And we are on Facebook. We are on other social media. So please listen to us as you're driving in your car, going into work. What better time to be able to listen? Go on the podcast, listen to the podcast. We are doing this for you because we have suffered and we know what the suffering is like. So we are doing this for you as well as for ourselves.
Well, thank you, doctor. And I love calling her Dr. King, and she's going for her doctorate degree from what I understand. So go ahead, and I'm doing it
Yes.
prematurely, but guess what?
Right.
Dr. King, you are amazing. Actually, I did want to cover one other item, and that is, although you're not a doctor yet and you're going towards your doctorate degree,
Yes.
you're a therapist by profession. Is that not correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so
Uh,
you've been doing this work in community for a long time.
yes. And I just started, I bring the healthcare into my session sometime because the clients that I serve, a lot of times, if they got diabetes, they don't understand why they're feeling the way they feel. It messes with you
Mm,
mentally.
Mm.
And so I enjoy the work that I do. I always say the saddest thing is I couldn't help myself.
Wow.
I
Wow.
could not help myself. So I needed help. And one of them was just being a part and
Mm.
structuring and being a co-founder
Well,
of the AADA. Because I couldn't put my help anywhere else. I couldn't put it into therapy. But, I bring it into there also, though.
that's right. Very good. Well, thank you, Barbara King, for your vulnerability and your powerful insights into your personal journey and your vital work with the African American Diabetes Association. I'll tell you, for the listeners today, I hope that you were able to glean some powerful information on what it is to actually be challenged by diabetes and the opportunities that it provides to become even more healthier, more engaged. And by the way, African American Diabetes Association is ready to engage you in a volunteer journey. So on the website, you'll get information on how to volunteer as well. Coming up next week on this podcast will be one of the, I'll say, powerful men involved in the African American Diabetes Association, and that is Deacon Anthony Banks, chairperson of the African American Diabetes Association and a board member. And he's going to talk about his life experiences and his journey with the African American diabetes as well. I want to thank you, Barbara King. You are an amazing person and one of my favorite and
Thank,
thought-provoking thinkers and one of my best friends as well.
thank you.
Thank you, Bob. We
Thank you.
appreciate you. Until the
Thank you.
next time, this has been Leon Rock, and this has been the African American Diabetes Podcast. Have a good day. Thank you, Barbara.
Thank you.
Yeah. Living with diabetes, the challenges are real, but understanding your body, how you truly feel, that's where we start with Leon Rock's Guiding Hand on the African American Diabetes Podcast. Understand, we're talking blood sugar and healthy eating too, sharing stories and finding strength, me and you, from lifestyle changes to medical advice. We're building a community that's more than just nice.